ॐ कूजन्दं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम् यस्य ज्ञानप्रभवमतुलं रामचन्द्रस्य मोहं दूरीकृत्वा सकलजगदामद्वयं घोषितं च तं योगीन्द्रं निगमनिलयं ब्रह्मणः पुत्ररूपम् आनन्दाब्धिं गुरुवरमहं श्रीवसिष्ठं प्रपद्ये। Namaste. Welcome to yet another interesting episode of Yoga Vasishta Online colloquium, brought to you by Tadvanam Ashramam as part of its Mahashivarathri celebrations 2024. We have seen a lot of stories and a lot of philosophical discussions that happened between Vasishta and Sri Rama in the last few days. And in the last episode we saw about Shikhidhwaja. Shikhidhwaja was the king of Malava Desha, and his wife was Chudala, who was the daughter of Surashtra king. And they both lived happily, and after a while they started doing the Atma Vijara, or the discussions about the self. Within these discussions, Chudala was more inclined towards practicing them, and she started doing the Atma Vichara during all the times while Shikhidhwaja remained immersed in the world. A time comes when Chudala again and again repeats the principle to Shikhidhwaja, persuading him to follow the path of Vichara rather than being engaged in the worldly activities, but he declines and he takes it as a joke. Later we see that Chudala decides or have a desire to have the power to levitate and to travel through the air, and she gains that power through the yogic siddhis. Now, Chudala, even though she attained the Atmajnana, she was unhappy for her husband, who was still entangled in the worldly affairs. Now, at this stage, Sri Rama poses an important question to Vasishtha. Sri Rama asks, Chudala was a self-realized soul, and even she could not make Shikhidhwaja to gain the realization. Why is it so, and how can this happen? All the while we were thinking that if a guru is capable and able, there is no hindrance to the liberation of the disciple. How come that even Chudala could not make Shikhidhwaja realize the self? To this, Vasishtha says an important and very thought-provoking verse, which probably is one of its kind in the entire spiritual history and sacred texts. Vasishtha says that all this Guru Upadesha, the advice from the learned soul, the Guru, is all just a formality, and the real liberation is happening because of the pure buddhi, Shuddha Buddhi, pure intellect of the disciple. Guru can be a reason, but Guru cannot lead the disciple to liberation until the disciple has the Shuddha Buddhi or the pure intellect. Now this is a very important factor for us to consider, because all the while through various scriptures we have learned that if you find a perfect Guru, you are bound to get liberated. But here Vasishta clearly says it is based on your intellect, your chittavritti. You have to strive to attain your own liberation, and the other things are just formality. Be it the Guru's Upadesha, be it the sannyasa or any other action that worldly people think are enough for the liberation are not enough. They are formalities, and it is purely dependent on your own effort and your own intellectual capability. Now, to demonstrate this, Vasishta gives another story of a person called Kirata. So this Kirata was a very miserly person. He was once traveling through a thick, dense forest full of shrubs and herbs, and he lost one coin. Now, because he was very miserly, he started searching all over that place to find this lost coin. And he searched there continuously for 3 days without any break for his daily routines. After 3 days of search, he finds the Chintamani, or the wish fulfilling gem, which was laying down in that forest area. And this Chintamani was more valuable than the coin that he was looking out for. So, just like this, Vasishta says, when the Guru gives the Upadesha, you would start searching, but you would end up getting something else. You start searching for the coin and you ended up getting the Chintamani. The similar fashion, when the Guru gives an Upadesha and you start following that, in fact you are going towards something, but you end up gaining yourself. So that gaining of the self is completely dependent on your capability, your effort. Had it not been for those 3 days of search, the Chintamani would not have been discovered. In a similar fashion, the Guru Upadesha is a formality. It is the Upadesha to gain the coin. But once you start searching, you go behind it, you will end up getting the Chintamani, the self, which is all wish fulfilling gem that you have to gain. So through this, Vasishta gives this very detailed explanation about how Guru Upadesha becomes a reason for your self-discovery, not by itself gives you liberation. Because the self, the reality of the self is always within. It cannot be given or taken. It cannot be advised. It cannot be prescribed. It cannot be described. it can just be realized. And that realization has to happen at an individual level. Guru, who is a Brahmatnya himself, can show the path, can show the way, can show the rituals and routines that you need to perform to make your own mind and intellect free from all the stains. Apart from that, he cannot bestow on you the liberation, because it is not to be gained, it is not to be taken, it is not to be given, it is to be realized. And that realization has to happen within one's own intellect and through one's own vichara. So this is very clearly stated in the Yoga Vasishta, which probably is not as clearly stated in many other texts. Coming back to Shikhitwaja, the days passed. Shikhitwaja was still immersed in the worldly affairs. He becomes very much detached to the bhogas of the kingship or the worldly materials which gives happiness or which gives joy. He becomes restless. He becomes very much eager to find the real nature, and he starts doing various activities like danas or pilgrimage, penance, etc. But none of these gives him any result. With this, he was completely confused and he was kind of in a dejected mode, to not knowing what to do next. So he decides that he is going to leave the country, leave the palace. So he tells to his wife Chudala that, hey Chudala, this world is becoming more and more poisonous for me. I am not finding any kind of peace in this world, and I don't think by living in the palace I would be able to achieve peace of mind. Hence, I am leaving the country, leaving the palace, and I am going to the forest. Chudala, on the other hand, was the self-realized person who realized it by being in the palace only. She tries to persuade king in various ways, and the king doesn't agree to any of these. So Chudala was again not sure what to do, how to convince him. So she decides to wait. But that night, when Chudala was asleep, Shikhitwaja wakes up from the bed and he travels to the forest alone. He tells to the people who were awake, the guards, that he is going for the hunting, and he starts off alone by saying goodbye to the treasures of the kingship. He walks a long way, day and night he travels, and after 10 days he reaches a valley on the sides of Mandara mountains. He finds a place where there is there seemed to be having some huts in the past. So he thinks that okay, this place might have been inhabited by Brahmanas in the past. So let me settle here. It was a very beautiful place on the valleys of Mandara mountain, and he creates a hut for himself. He procures some articles for a basket for putting the flowers, a basket for putting the fruits, Rudraksha necklace, a stick made up of bamboo, a kamandalu, a blanket, a seat to sit and meditate. So he procures all these things, he builds a hut and he starts living in the forest. Daily he would wake up early in the morning, do lot of japa, then he goes out and plucks the flowers, puts it in the basket, comes back, and then he does a lot of worship during the daytime, and the remaining time also he does this japa and dhyana, and it goes on like that. He maintains a lifestyle of a forest dwelling tapasa or a seer. Chudala, on the other hand, when she wakes up sometime during the early morning, she realizes that her husband has left, as he told. She felt what to do. If I cannot make him persuade to realize the self, to do the Atma Vichara, what can I do? Let me follow him. That is the dharma or duty of a pious wife, and she already knew how to levitate, so she goes through the sky and see her husband going from a distance. She does meditate as to what is going to happen, and she realizes that okay, there is no point going behind him. Time has to come for him to realize the futility of doing this, so let me wait until then. And she returns back to the palace. The king, before telling the decision, had asked Chudala to take care of the kingdom when he is gone. She decides, let me at least do that. And she tells the ministers that the king had left with some people on an urgent work and would be returning soon. And she takes charge of the kingdom. She performs the duties of a king in his absence very well. The kingdom flourishes. The days and months and weeks pass by, and 18 years went like this, where Chudala was ruling the country and our Shikhithoja was doing the penance in the forest. One day Chudala realizes that okay, this is the time for me to go to my husband, and she travels through the air and reaches the mountain ranges. There she could see the husband, Shikhithoja, completely devoid of all the signs of a king. He became lean, he became very pale, and his body was in a pathetic condition. he was doing a pitiful life by being in that forest. Chudala felt sad, but she realized that through all this penance and japa and meditation, he has attained certain stage of mental stability, maturity, for her to now explain to him about the self. But she knew that if she goes in her own form, he would again ignore her because of the love and because he thinks she is still a child. So Chudala takes the form of a brahmachari, of a young lad, and he goes in front of Shikhidhwaja. Shikhidhwaja was surprised to see a human form after years in his ashrama. He welcomes this new Atithi, guest, with all the formal ways of welcoming, and he observes this guy. He was barely 16 or 17 and was shining like gold. His legs did not touch the ground. He was on air while walking, and the glow in his face, the chaitanya in his face, clearly indicated that he was not an ordinary human being. So Shikhidhwaja welcomes him, makes him sit, and very with all the due respect, he asks, "O Lord, who are you? I see that you have come to this hermitage of mine, and I am blessed. You have come here to bless me. You are the son of gods. Please tell me who you are and what is the aim of you coming here." And this brahmachari, he says, "O king, I know you have been here for almost 18 years doing this great penance, and I am happy to see you here." So Shikhidhwaja again realized that, okay, this is not a common man, because he knows I am a king. You have left your kingdom and your family, and you have been living here. I have come to see you. Now, to answer your question, who I am. My name is Kumbha. I am the son of sage Narada. Once, sage Narada was sitting in a forest near a lake, and the Deva Apsaras, the damsels of Devaloka, of the heaven, they came for bathing. Thinking that nobody was there, they bathed like openly. And Narada saw all these things. Narada's mind was moved a bit, and the result is me. He put the embryo in a pot, and it grew to me. Hence I am called Kumbha. After me attaining a certain age, Narada himself gave me all the upadeshas, all the advices, and he took me to Brahma, his father. And Brahma also blessed me and gave me upadeshas. I have come here to see you because I know that you have been doing a lot of great penance here. Now, Chudala, who took the form of Kumbha, by seeing the form of the king, the lean and dry body of the king, she started thinking that, oh, the people who have learned the scriptures, their foolishness is of great pity. Those who haven't learned the scriptures, if they do things against the scriptures or without realizing the inner meaning of the scriptures, it is understandable. Here the learned people are getting into these kind of karma kanda, these kind of activities, without realizing that the self cannot be realized, cannot be attained through any actions. All the actions that you take are not going to let you find the self. Here again, there is a very great advice for the people like us, because we feel that the more we do great positive activities like giving away the danas, the philanthropy or penance, japa, dhyana, all these things will lead to liberation, while the self is not to be gained. It is already present, already it is yours. You just need to reaffirm that. You just need to get out of the notion that it is to be gained from somewhere. Even in the previous episodes I have told, attaining the self, gaining the self knowledge, realizing the self is all told very comparatively. It is just to make you understand that he reached that stage, while the fact is that it is not to be reached, it is not to be attained, it is not to be gained, it is always present, it is just to be acknowledged and realized. What happened to this Shikhidhwaja? He was doing the work of king earlier. It was a work, and he now is doing the work of a tapasa, of a seer. There is no difference in the term work. Work remains the same. He is still entangled in the work. He thinks this work is more better than that work. That's it. While the work in itself is not going to lead you to realization. The work will never get you the self-realization. It is actually a hindrance if not performed without the detachment. Chudala attained the self-knowledge by being as a Rajapatni, as a queen, by doing that job, by taking care of her husband, by ensuring that everything that she has to do as a queen has been taken care of. But by engaging herself throughout that period in the self-inquiry. Whereas here, King Shikhidhwaja left the job of the king and took another job of a tapasa, of a sage, of a seer, of a forest dweller. Again, instead of having attachment to the bhogas, to the lavishness, luxury of the kingdom, of the palace, he started having the attachment towards this hermitage and his utensils. Attachment remains the same. Karma or the work remains the same. When it is an easy path which lets you gain, again I am using it very imperatively, which lets you arrive at that conclusion that this whole world is self, by being in the work that you are engaged in, people think it is something to be gained by renouncing one work and gaining another work. By going into the forest, by doing a lot of penance, you will attain it. No. As long as you are still having the feeling that I am doing it, you are still not going to attain it. Now, to make the king realize this, Kumbha asks him, I have told you my story, but why are you here? To this, the king answers, okay, I'll tell you my story, but I have a doubt. You said Narada, sage Narada, he lost self-control? And Kumbha says yes. Even for a moment, if you think this drishya, what is seen, is real, then you will lose your mental stability. So says Narada, for a moment considered those damsels as separate from him. Once the mind has the notion of duality, it naturally becomes unrest. And from that, work comes out. Results come out. Hence I was born. Sukha dukkha kalaspando bandho jivasya netara tadabhavo hi moksha syad idi dvedha vyavasthiti. He says clearly that the bondage to a soul is the spanda, is the impulse that happens within the consciousness, which turns into the happiness and sorrow. Its absence is moksha. So for a moment, my father had this impulse in his mind, because of which I was born and I have to continue my life. So a person has to do the Swarupa Anusandhana, the thought about the real nature of the self, until even for a moment he does not forget the real nature of the self. Until that point of time, he has to continue the self-inquiry. Until the time that you are able to remove the name and form from what is seen and understand the underlying consciousness, you have to continue the self-inquiry. So even Narada, my father, even he had to again redo the whole penance to regain his conscious state, absolute nature. So now the Shikhidhwaja understood this. Shikhidhwaja starts telling about his story. I was the king of Malava and I felt a strong desire to renounce the kingdom. I left my kingdom, my luxury, my everything, my family, and I came to this forest to do great penance. But look at me now, I still haven't been able to get away with my own sorrows and my own internal dilemmas. So Kumbha says that you have left the country, left the kingdom, kingship, and you are now attached to this tapasavritti, to this forest life. You feel attached to this hermitage. That is the reason for your bondage, for your displeasure. Jnanam hi paramashreya kaivalyam tena vetyalam. He says the only thing that will give you ultimate peace is jnana, is the knowledge about the self. Whatever that you are doing here is the karma, is the activities which will not help you to attain the self, to attain the knowledge. Only knowledge is the remover of this maya, of the bondage, of the vasanas, of the drishya sankalpas, of the mind, of the mental illusions. In Gita it says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram vidyate. There is nothing that purifies or pure as the knowledge itself. Kumbha repeats the same thing to his disciple or the person who has seeked the advice from him. Shikhitwaja tells Kumbha that I am completely surrendering to you. You tell me what to do. So Kumbha says this, and Kumbha continues saying that a person would do karmas, do the activities to remove those vasanas. So to remove the kriya vasana, you have to do the kriyas, not the other way around. It is just to remove those vasanas. It will not give you ultimate knowledge. Your attachment to the kriya, to the karma, to the work, to the action is actually the cause for your own bondage. We discussed this in one of the previous episodes also. You have to remove the ashubha vasana by using the shubha vasana, shuddha vasana, and then remove the shubha vasana or shuddha vasana too. In this particular case, if you analyze this in light of those old episodes, you would realize that Shikhitwaja was able to remove the Ashubha Vasana by the Shubha Vasana, by doing the penance and everything. But he was still attached to the Shubha Vasana. He could not remove that. He could not dispel that. That is the reason why he was still not happy even after leaving those country and luxury for 18 years. Kumbha says a mind with the vasanas is mind. A mind without vasana is Brahma. A mind which does not move reflects the Brahman directly. So you have to get rid of your mind from the vasanas by doing the vicharam, by doing the self-inquiry. Why are you not doing it? Your wife had told the same thing to you. Your wife Chudala told you to think of the self, realize the self, don't leave the country. But you didn't listen to that. And Shikhitwaja says, yes, I understand. Now I understand that she was right, I was wrong. But what to do? At that stage of my mind, I could not listen to her. I repent on that now. And so on, this discussion continues. Shikhidhwaja asks Kumbha, okay, tell me what to do. I have nobody else. It has been 18 years since I am living alone here. You are the first person to come here and you are saying so beautifully about the self and the ways in which the self can be realized. You only have to give me the pathway to my own liberation. So Kumbha says, okay, I'll give you a story. And Kumbha starts narrating a story. There was one guy who wanted to have the Chintamani. Chintamani we already saw earlier. A gem which fulfills any wish. He starts doing a lot of penance. Great penance. He goes into a forest, secludes himself, and he starts doing penance that would gain him the access to the Chintamani. After a short while, after the person had started the penance, the Chintamani appears before him with lot of shining, and it was reachable to him. He could just extend his hand and reach the Chintamani. But then he thinks, I have heard this Chintamani is very difficult to attain. I haven't done enough penance to attain this Chintamani. Is it possible that the Chintamani can appear before me within this short span of time? It definitely should be some kind of a Maya, or somebody is trying to fool me, cheat me. I will not touch this Chintamani lest it goes away. Thinking so, he never touched the Chintamani and it never grabbed it. After a while, the Chintamani disappeared. The man continued his penance for a longer period. After a long time, somebody who wanted to fool this man kept a tinsel, a metal that shines, in front of him, and the man thought, oh, this should be Chintamani. I have done enough penance, so this should be the Chintamani which I need to grab. And he grabs it and he goes away, runs away. And later he had to have a lot of problem with that piece of tinsel which he misunderstood as Chintamani. While the original Chintamani, he didn't even bother to touch it. So Kumbha says this story to Shikhidhwaja, and Kumbha says, I will tell you another story. This is the story of a Gajendra, an elephant. This elephant was tied up with strong iron chains, and he never was allowed to roam around freely. So this elephant had two tusks which were as strong as the Vajra itself. One day he decides to break this iron chain and does that with all his might using the tusks. By seeing the elephant free from chains, the mahout jumps on the elephant trying to defeat it, trying to bring it under control. He jumps aiming its forehead, which is a marmasthana, a key point, hitting which the elephant would surrender, but he misses it. The mahout falls down just in front of the Gajendra, the elephant, on his back. The elephant raises its legs to kill that mahout, that it feels pity on that guy and it lets it go. The elephant lets the mahout go. And the elephant leaves to the forest, but the mahout, knowing that the elephant is so strong and he wanted it back, he follows the elephant and he creates a pit, fills it with leaves and grass, and with that deception the elephant is again taken back into control by the mahout. This is the second story that Kumbha describes to Shikhidhwaja. Now Shikhidhwaja asks, okay, I heard your stories, can you elaborate on it? Can you explain the principle, what you wanted to explain through these stories? So Kumbha explains. In the first story of Chintamani, the Chintamani is the gem that removes all the sorrows, right? Chintamani is actually nothing but Sarvatyaga, the renunciation of everything. That is the key to get the gem which removes your sorrows. In your case, you removed everything, you renounced everything, but you didn't renounce your ahankara. So you thought, I have renounced, I have done, I have renounced my country, my kingdom, my family. This I is the one which you needed to remove. Sarvatyaga is the Chintamani which can be gained by removing this thought of I am the doer. Instead of doing that, you got fascinated with this tinsel of tapas, penance. The Chintamani was at your disposal. When Chodala was giving you advice, it was at your reach. But you never bothered to touch it. You thought it is something which has to be gained by a lot of penance, lot of work, it was as simple as that. You could have just grabbed it when Chodala was giving you advice. You were at the verge of getting the self-realization, the Chintamani, you rejected that. And then you went behind the tinsel of tapas, penance, work, japa, dhyana. And that is the reason why you are here. Chintamani, the Sarvatyaga, is you need not remove everything, renounce everything. What you need to renounce is your ahankara and your sankalpa. Unless you do that, you always will feel that I renounce this, I renounce that, I got this, I need to get that. This I and mine will not leave you until you leave ahankara and sankalpa. So that is the reason why you are here. Now let me explain the second story. The elephant is you yourself, Shikhidhwaja, your soul. It is being tied up in the iron chain, which is your desires, asha pasha. Your desires are tying you up, and the two tusks are the Viveka and Vairagya, the knowledge of the real and unreal, and the spirit of renunciation. These two are the tusks with which you actually cut down the iron chain of asha, the desire. You were able to break free. You were able to come out of that bondage, of that chain of desires. You understood what was real, what was unreal, and then you used your renunciation, power of renunciation, to break them. But then the mahout was the ignorance which always controls you, which grabs you, which tries to keep you under control. That mahout tried to control you again. At that time, when you renounced the kingdom, it actually fell down on its back. You should have killed that mahout at that same instant by using your sarvatyaga, the sword of sarvatyaga. You should have made your mind to kill that ajnana, kill that ignorance, that I am the doer. Instead of doing that, you let it go. It came back, it came through your behind in the form of this tapas, the penance. It created a pit and you fell in that. You are now in the pit of penance and puja and dhyana, which is created by the ajnana to grab you again under control. It filled it with the grasses and leaves, which looks like the good deeds. The good deeds are the leaves and grass which covers this pit of penance. And you fell in that. That is the explanation to the what the two stories were. Now think of this. Till now we were being told the good deed, penance, everything is to remove the ajnana. But Vasishta clearly states through this Shikhitvajobhakhana that work of any nature, either good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. A work is a work as long as you have the feeling that you are the doer. What is required is the sankalpa tyaga, sarva tyaga. Sarva tyaga comes only if you remove your I-ness from that. The moment you feel I am doing the puja, I am doing dhyana, I am doing japa, I am so and so, I am this and that, you are still sticking on to that jnana. Until and unless you realize I am Brahman, I am everything, I am nothing. Until that point of time, you will have all these notions that I am doing this, I am recording this Yoga Vasishta colloquium, I am so great, I am this, I am that. All these are ajnanas. Any action which is driven by this I-ness will lead to not attaining the liberation. As simple as that. That is why earlier also I told in one of the episode that you have a strong desire to do good things. You have to remove that also. Because that also will lead to, knowingly or unknowingly, it will lead to this aham bodha, aham bhava, that I am doing it. Once you attain the self-realization, you realize that, then you come back and do whatever you want. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna very clearly says this. There was a guy called Jadu Malik who comes and tells him that I want to build hospitals and dispensaries for the poor, the schools. Bhagavan says, okay, wait. Have you realized yourself? Have you attained the knowledge? If God comes in front of you and asks you for a boon, would you ask for 100 dispensaries and 1000 schools? Or would you ask for your own liberation and self-realization? First get that. Then you can do whatever that you want in the world, because it won't touch you. You would be 100,000-fold more powerful than what you think you are. Because the whole universal forces are behind you to do that work, and you have no role in that. Yourself, your ahankara has no role in that. You just act as an instrument through which tremendous power passes by. Wouldn't that be better? Rather than thinking, I have to do things, I have to. So that is why the scriptures keeps on saying the best thing that you can do to the world is to know yourself. That is the greatest help that you can do to the humanity, to the mankind, to the world. Ponder over this idea, because this is one of the key principles which often our spiritual gurus forget to tell us, and we forget to read it through their verses. They might be intending the development of yourself from the current level to the next level. But Yoga Vasishta clearly says, okay, after next level and next level and next level, where you should reach. The goal is set very clear. The goal is set without any scope for any kind of lack of clarity. And that goal is self-realization, and it cannot be attained. I am repeating it, and Upanishads have repeated this 100,000 times. Na karmana, na prajaya dhanena, tyage neike amrtatvamanashu. Neither with the work, nor with the offsprings, nor with wealth, the immortality is attained only through renunciation. And what is that renunciation? Here it says, the sarvatyaga, the renunciation of the identity of the self. The renunciation of the sankalpas of this being different from me. The idea of helping somebody else comes because you think there is somebody else. Isn't it? If everything is you, who is there to help whom? Think of it. If everything is Brahman, who is helping who? This is a very, very complex topic, and it is very hard for you to digest it, because it is against all the customary things that has been told to you. It has been told, if you do this homa, this japa, this practice, you would attain liberation. It wouldn't happen as long as you have the notion that you are doing it. It wouldn't happen as long as you have the sankalpa that world is different from me. It wouldn't happen until the doer, the action and the done mix up together, and you can see everything as one. The Triputi Bhava has to go if you want to attain liberation. And the Triputi Bhava, when it goes, you would have no attachment to the karmas. Because there is nobody else, nothing else other than you. Your consciousness, your bodha. So, this is the reason why majority of the people go and stand at the door gates of liberation but cannot go to that. This attachment towards the good. Bhagavan in the Bhagavad Gita says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. You ignore all the dharmas, all the duties, remove everything and then surrender to me. If you think you are a son, you are a father, you are a mother, you will have duties to perform. And that is ignorance. Because you feel I am doing it. Period. As long as that is there is distinction. Dvaidat bhayam bhavati, advaitam eva bhayam. If there is two, there is bound to be restlessness, fear, desire. Only non-duality gives abhayam, fearlessness. So Kumbha tries to explain this to Shikhidhwaja. Shikhidhwaja doesn't understand it initially. He says, I renounced my kingdom, my wealth, my house, my family, everything that I had as Shikhidhwaja. And I came to this forest. Isn't my Sarvatyaga complete? Then Kumbha asked, was the wealth, the kingdom, the family yours? Was it ever yours? How can you claim them? You just received them. They are not yours. Then how can you renounce them? They never was yours, never is yours, never will be yours. They are inert things which just comes up and goes away. It cannot be yours. How can you renounce it? Something which is not yours. Then Shikhidhwaja was little surprised. He says, okay, then probably this forest and this whole serene atmosphere, these would be mine. I am renouncing them. In my mind, I am renouncing them. Again, Kumbha says, this forest, these serene atmospheres were before you came here. How can that be yours? So how can you renounce that which is not yours? Then he says, okay, this Parnashala, this hut which I built, and all these utensils that I have procured, this blanket, these would be mine. I am renouncing them mentally. I have renounced them. Isn't my Sarvatyaga complete? Kumbha says, no. These are also not yours. These just you procured on the way. It was somewhere else. You just procured it. How can it be yours? Then he says, okay, there is this Kamandalu, Yogadanda, Rudrakshamala, my cloth. I am renouncing everything. And then he puts them in the fire and asks, isn't my Sarvatyaga complete? Kumbha says, how come? These never were yours. All these things you acquired over a period of time. How can your Sarvatyaga complete by just burning them? Your desire, your attachment to these is yours. What is yours is the attachment towards these things. Remove that. Renounce that. Then you would gain the knowledge. But again, Shikhidhwaja is confused. He says, okay, that attachment is coming from the body. I'll renounce this body. I am going to die. Will my Sarvatyaga complete? And he starts jumping into the fire. And Kumbha stops him by hand. Says that, what stupidity are you doing? This is not what Sarvatyaga means. Renouncing the body is not Sarvatyaga. Renouncing anything that physically that you are doing is not Sarvatyaga. Sarvatyaga is the renunciation of the attachment, renunciation of the feeling that I am the doer. This is Sarvatyaga. Outwardly renunciations are not required, are not enough. Renouncing, giving away things outwardly will not help you to realize the self. You renounced all this, whatever you told, outwardly, but inwardly you had the feeling that I am doing it. It is mine, I am doing it. It never was yours. You never did anything. You are Shuddha Atman. How can you renounce anything? The only thing that you need to renounce is the sankalpa that this world exists. The sankalpa that this was mine. The sankalpa that I am doer. And the ahankara, which is the root cause of the whole world. Kumbha says, Yenayam kshobhyade deho yad bijam janma karmanam tat samtyajasi ched tyajyam tanmaha tyagavan bhavan. What is the reason for this body to act? What is the seed for the birth and the activities of the life? If you can renounce that, that is the greatest sacrifice, greatest renunciation that you can do. So focus on that rather than renouncing all the things that you are not yours. And what is the root cause of this whole body to be acting for the birth and activities of the life? It is the chitta, which is in ajnana. What is ajnana? Ajnana is to understand the jada, inert things, as yourself. So a chitta with the ajnana will be filled with vasanas. Actually, the chitta is the visible form of vasanas. The vasanas keep you engaged in the karma. The vasanas gives birth to raga and dvesha, the desire and the disgust, and it forces you to act to what it desires. The vasanas drive the chariot of your life, and you keep on working to attain that. Those gives birth to more vasanas. These accumulate and makes you ever working, ever engaged in the activities. And it doesn't end with the body. That is why when Shikhidhwaja was about to leave the body, Kumbha stopped him, because by giving away the body, the Sarvatyaga will not be complete. Sarvatyaga will be complete by giving away this chitta, which is the visible form of vasanas. So vasana has to end, the chitta has to subside. Then there won't be any more lives or deaths or any more actions or activities to perform. Because if everything is you, what is there for you to gain or lose? by acting or not acting. You wouldn't have a desire to act, you wouldn't have a desire not to act. You will just do as it comes, very spontaneous. You wouldn't either desire to leave the world or desire to have the world. You wouldn't be bothered about mukti, you wouldn't be bothered about bandha. This is the Sarvatyaga. Chudala attained it by being in the palace. Shikhitwaja didn't attain even after being in the forest. So the seed to the Janma and Karma is the Chitta. Like the wind moves the tree, these vasanas, these manas sankalpas, they move the body. So when the mind gets unrest, the body gets unrest. It will be forced into activities. So this is a very highly critical philosophical juncture that we are in, where Kumbha tells to Shikhitwaja that all your penance was not pointed towards Sarvatyaga, which is to renounce the self, renounce the chitta, renounce the ahankara. Hence, you didn't achieve what you wanted to. In the upcoming discussion, Kumbha makes Shikhitwaja renounce them one by one by making him realize how to do it, what to do, how to do. We will see that in the upcoming episode. Please do continue to watch. Until we meet again, remember this principle that the work is inert and it doesn't give you the ultimate goal which is set forth by the Vedanta, which is the realization. Work is a tool, a path, but at some point of time you have to leave that too and plunge into the ocean of self-realization by negating the existence of anything other than Brahman or consciousness. So have this very clear in your mind and continue doing your work. Until we meet again tomorrow with the continuation of Shikhitwaja's story. Namaste, Hari Om, Tat Sat.